She was soaked, broke, and invisible to the world until she gave her last 1,000 naira to a helpless old woman in the rain. What Ada didn't know was that her simple act of kindness would unlock doors she never dreamed of and change her life forever. You won't believe what happened next. The rain had started without warning, pouring down on the already chaotic streets of Lagos. Horns blared as impatient drivers struggled to navigate flooded roads, while pedestrians scrambled for shelter under shop canopies and bus stops. In the midst of the chaos, Ada hurried along the sidewalk, her thin umbrella barely holding up against the pounding rain. Her uniform, a cheap blue supermarket polo and faded jeans, was already soaked, but she kept moving. She had just closed from work at the supermarket in Ojota, where her supervisor had shouted at her all day for mistakes that weren't hers. Her feet ached, and the 1,000 naira in her purse was supposed to be for dinner and tomorrow's transport fare. Still, she walked with a quiet determination, her eyes focused on getting home before nightfall. As she turned the corner onto a quieter street near the bus stop, her eyes caught a strange sight: an elderly woman standing alone by a concrete wall drenched from head to toe. Her wrapper clung to her frail body, and her grey headscarf sagged under the weight of the rain. People passed by her without so much as a glance. Some even brushed past her roughly, muttering curses about the weather and the mad woman in their way. Ada paused. Something in her heart twisted. She looked around, wondering if the woman was waiting for someone. But the older woman stood still, shivering, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, eyes darting between the crowd and the rain. Without thinking too much, Ada turned around and walked towards her. "Ma, are you okay?" she asked softly. The old woman looked up, her eyes sharp despite her fragile appearance. "I'm just trying to get home. I didn't expect the rain. My phone is dead and I can't reach my driver," she said, her voice calm but tired. Ada hesitated. She didn't have much, and the last time she helped someone like this, her friends laughed at her, saying kindness doesn't pay bills. But looking at the woman, soaked and trembling, she couldn't walk away. She took a deep breath and stretched out her small umbrella. "Let's go to that cafe across the road. You can wait there until the rain reduces," she said, guiding the woman carefully. The old woman didn't protest. She leaned gently on Ada as they crossed the road, careful not to slip on the wet pavement. Inside the cafe, the smell of pastries and coffee filled the air. It wasn't a fancy place, just a local shop with metal chairs and plastic tables, but it was dry and warm. Ada sat the woman down and went to the counter. She looked at the price list. A cup of tea was 400 naira. She ordered 2, leaving her with only 200 naira. As she returned to the table with the drinks, the old woman looked at her curiously. "You didn't have to buy me anything," she said, her voice gentle. "I know, but you looked cold," Ada replied, setting down the steaming cup in front of her. The woman studied Ada's face. "You're very young. Are you a student?" Ada laughed, the sound short and bitter. "I wish. I finished secondary school 4 years ago, but university, not possible for now. My mother passed, and my little sister stays with me, so I work at a supermarket." The old woman nodded slowly, sipping the tea. "And you helped me just like that?" Ada shrugged, suddenly feeling awkward. "I know what it's like to be ignored, to be treated like you don't exist. Every day I work from morning to night, and most customers won't even look you in the eye unless they're yelling at you. I didn't want to be like them." The old woman was quiet for a while. Then she said, "What's your name?" "Ada," she replied, short for Adan. "That's a strong name," the woman said, her lips curving into a soft smile. The rain continued to pour outside. Ada glanced at her watch. Her last bus would leave in 15 minutes. She sighed and stood up. "I have to go now. The rain is still falling, but if I miss the last bus, it's a long walk home." The old woman stood as well. "Thank you, Ada. You didn't have to help, but you did. May life be kind to you." Ada smiled tiredly. "I hope so." As she stepped out into the storm, her umbrella flipped under the wind. She laughed to herself, soaked for the second time that day, and disappeared into the crowd. Back in the cafe, the old woman sat down again, reached into her handbag and pulled out her phone. She powered it on and opened the camera app. A few moments earlier, while Ada wasn't looking, she had snapped a quiet picture of the young woman's kind gesture. She looked at it again and shook her head in disbelief. People like her still exist, she murmured to herself. Then she opened her messages and typed a brief note to her son. Jide, I think I found someone special. I'll explain when I get home. The morning sun peeked through faded curtains as Ada dragged herself out of bed. Her clothes from the day before were still damp, and her wallet still held only 200 naira. She hadn't eaten dinner the night before, telling her younger sister Chidinma that she wasn't hungry, just so the little girl could have more to eat. Her eyes were heavy from crying, but her spirit carried a numbness that had grown too familiar. As she walked to the supermarket where she worked, she rehearsed an apology in her head for being a few minutes late. Lagos traffic had made her miss the staff bus again, but when she arrived, her supervisor didn't give her a chance to explain. He stood at the entrance, arms folded, eyes hard. Ada, don't bother clocking in, he said without looking up from his phone. You're no longer needed here. Management says you've had too many warnings. Pack your things. She blinked, stunned. Sir, please, I really need this job. Just give me one more chance. But he waved her off like a fly. You should have thought of that before missing another morning. The economy is hard for everyone. You think we don't have other people begging to work here? Ada turned away, cheeks burning with humiliation. The other staff stared silently as she walked out of the building, holding back tears. By the time she reached home, her mind was already calculating how to stretch her last 200 naira to feed Chidinma for the next 2 days. She didn't even notice the sleek black SUV parked outside her compound until the door opened and a man in a tailored navy blue suit stepped out. Good afternoon, Miss Ada, the man said with a polite smile. She paused, unsure how he knew her name. This is for you, he continued, handing her a cream-coloured envelope with her name written in neat cursive across the front. She took it slowly. Who sent you? Please read it, he said simply before returning to the car and driving off. Puzzled, Ada opened the envelope and pulled out a handwritten note. You showed kindness when no one was looking. Come to this address tomorrow at 10 a.m. M.W. She stared at the note for several moments. M.W.? It had to be the old woman from the cafe. But how did she find her? Who was she really? The next morning, wearing her only decent blouse and a skirt that barely fit, Ada boarded a bus heading to Victoria Island. The address on the note led her to a tall glass building that shimmered in the sun, standing like a palace among the surrounding concrete structures. She hesitated at the gate, conscious of her worn-out shoes and nervous energy. Inside, a receptionist greeted her with a professional smile. You're Miss Ada, right? Madam is expecting you. She was escorted past shiny elevators and into a top-floor office with marble floors, gold-trimmed furniture, and a view that stretched across the city. Every step felt surreal, like walking through someone else's dream. The door to the office opened, and there she was, the old woman from the rain, but now dressed in a silk blouse, diamond earrings, and soft makeup. She sat behind a polished desk, her poise unmistakable. Good morning, Ada, she said warmly. Please come in. Ada's eyes widened. I don't understand. Who are you, Ma? I'm Madam Mariah Williams, the woman said, standing to shake her hand. You met me during the storm 2 days ago. Yes, I remember, Ada replied quickly. But this place? This whole everything? Madame Mariah smiled and gestured for her to sit. That day, you helped me when you had nothing. No camera watching, no gain in sight. And I thought to myself, if my son had someone like you working with him, someone whose heart is still pure despite the weight of the world, maybe he'd finally learn to trust people again. Ada blinked. Your son? Before Madame Mariah could respond, the door opened again. A tall man stepped in, wearing a crisp grey suit, wristwatch gleaming subtly. He looked no older than 32, confident, handsome, and commanding. Ada recognized him immediately. Jide Williams, the CEO of JW Group. His face was all over the business blogs and Instagram pages of Nigerian elites. She'd never imagined being in the same room with him. His gaze landed on Ada, and he paused at the doorway, surprised. "You're the one my mother hasn't stopped talking about?" he asked, eyebrows raised. Ada stood up quickly, nervous. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to—" "She's the young woman who gave up her own comfort to help me," Madame Morayo said proudly. "She didn't know who I was. She didn't expect anything. She simply chose kindness." Jide nodded slowly, eyes still on Ada. "Wow, that's rare these days." Madame Morayo looked at Ada again. "My son is looking for a new executive assistant, someone he can rely on. Someone who won't just chase power or money. I believe that person is you, Ada." Ada stared at her, stunned into silence. Her heart pounded, her mouth dry. Jide offered a slight smile. "What do you say? Ada? Ready for a new chapter?" Ada's first day at JW Group felt like stepping into a world she had only seen through glass windows and Instagram posts. Everything sparkled, glass doors that opened automatically, people dressed in designer suits, and elevators that moved silently to floors she could barely pronounce. She was introduced to a sleek workspace just outside Jide Williams' office. Her desk had a laptop with her name on the screen, a branded coffee mug, and a welcome note personally signed by Madame Morayo. But the glamour was only surface deep. The real challenge came in the form of expectations. Jide, though polite and professional, was known for his intensity and demand for excellence. Every minute had to be accounted for, every meeting flawlessly arranged, every report perfect. Ada worked twice as hard to keep up, staying late to learn company systems, typing with fingers that ached by midnight, and reading business reports she barely understood until they started making sense. Still, it wasn't long before her street smarts and humility caught Jide's attention. She handled a last-minute investor reschedule with such calm efficiency that Jide began trusting her with more responsibility. When an angry client stormed in threatening to pull a major deal, Ada listened patiently, calmed the man, and even convinced him to give the company another chance. Jide watched from the doorway, quietly impressed. Over time, their professional relationship deepened. Ada became more than just a scheduler or note-taker. She began contributing to strategy discussions, asking bold questions, and offering ideas that Jide began to adopt. And with every success, whispers began to rise in the office. "She's dating the boss," one colleague sneered in the restroom. "She must have used jazz," another muttered in the break room. "I heard she's just a charity project his mother forced on him," someone else chimed in. The whispers turned into full-blown rumors, and soon Ada could feel the cold stares from colleagues who once smiled at her. Her email was tampered with. Her desk was mysteriously missing files. She even overheard someone calling her a maid in disguise, but she kept her head down and focused. She had been through worse. This wasn't the first time people tried to reduce her to nothing. Then the scandal hit. A leaked document revealed suspicious withdrawals from the company's international account, amounting to millions of naira. The press pounced, calling it the JW financial leak. Investors panicked. Shareholders threatened legal action. Staff whispered even louder, some hinting that the new assistant had brought bad luck. But Ada didn't run. Instead, she combed through spreadsheets, call logs, and internal memos night after night. One evening, while reviewing transactions, she noticed a pattern. Tiny inconsistencies hidden under project codes that didn't exist. She traced it to an IT manager and a senior accountant who had been siphoning funds into a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. She gathered the evidence and brought it straight to Jide. He stared at her for a long moment before speaking. "You just saved this company, Ada." A week later, at a packed press conference held at JW headquarters, the company officially cleared its name. The culprits were arrested. The media buzzed with headlines, but it was Jide's announcement that shocked everyone. He stood behind the podium, Ada beside him, microphones pointed at his face. "Today, I want to thank someone who didn't just do her job," he said. "She protected this company, its vision, and its future. When others ran from fire, she walked into it with her head held high." The cameras clicked furiously. She came here with nothing but integrity, and in this world, that's priceless. If you're looking for beauty, brains, and heart, look no further. Gasps rippled through the audience. "And yes," he added, looking directly at Ada, "I'm proud to say she's not just an employee to me anymore." Madame Morayo sat in the front row, tears in her eyes, pride swelling in her chest. Her son had found someone not just to work beside him, but someone who reminded him of what real strength looked like. Ada, overwhelmed, tried to hold back the tears. She thought of her younger sister, of all the nights she went to bed hungry, of the cold rain that led to one simple act of kindness. She had never expected anything in return, but life, it seemed, had been watching. From struggling salesgirl to trusted advisor, and maybe something even deeper. Ada stood at that podium no longer invisible. She had arrived. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more teachable and inspiring folk tales by FE.